Welcome to In the Know with Steph and Joe. In the Know with Steph and Joe is all about small business development. These two entrepreneurs bring real-life experience, laughter, and, well, just a ton of knowledge on how to build your small business and make it thrive. After all, this is your creation. Now learn how to make it sing. In the Know with Steph and Joe airs Fridays at 3 p.m. right here on 216 The Net. Like, follow Steph's books and Restoration One of Cary, along with 216 The Net on Facebook, and subscribe to the 216 The Net YouTube channel. I always wonder why you and Joe are wearing the same clothes in the opening all the time. You guys have never changed.
I know, right? It's so weird. And then we do a quick wardrobe change and
Right
hair
here.
color change, shave a face, whatever.
That's it. Of course, today we are talking about end of year projections and meetings. And if you see Steph and No Joe, not Mojo, No Joe.
Yeah, Joe's off having some shenanigans. Since it's so close to his birthday, he's one of those people that celebrates it for at least 2 to 3 weeks.
I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy.
But luckily enough, we were able to get Jeff in the studio, and he is a CFO. So Jeff, why don't you kind of let everybody know your name, your business, and kind of just like a brief description of the services that you guys offer.
Sure. Jeff Mazza, thanks for having me. But we Millstone Consulting. We are a fractional CFO advisory firm. We provide a lot of clarity around the financials for business owners and that forward-thinking mentality and help navigate that path forward. I like to say, wouldn't you like to have the map before heading into the forest, or the directions before you jump in your car for a long road trip there? And that's where we come in to provide that level of clarity to make good business decisions to help achieve those dreams and goals. Excited to be here. So thank you, guys.
And of course, Millstone Consulting Group, challenging for one of the longest website names out there.
That was my goal in the beginning: is what the longest email I should find, and boom, I found it. So hopefully.
There it is. Nice.
Well, I guess if I would have done my web address as Steph's Bookkeeping Service LLC versus doing Steph's Books, and trimming it up a little bit, I'm sure mine would have been a little bit lengthy. I always find it weird though when clients have their like the full business name where it's really long. Like yours isn't too bad, but when they really have the whole thing, where it's 6 words or something, I'm like, I don't know.
Well, I'm kind of realizing now that Millstone Consulting Group could easily just be like mcg.com, and I don't know if it's too late, but it could be shortened.
Yeah. So today's topic that we're kind of talking about is prepping for end of year. And I know we still have about 2.5 months left till the end of the year, but now is the time, especially in my industry, where we start getting really busy for getting all the financials finalized and ready to present to their CPAs, to then you start making some decisions for fourth quarter to make sure that they have enough money for those tax liabilities, or if they have too much money, what can we do to reduce the tax liability, buy some computers or open up a SEP, or all these different things that can be done at the end of year. And so what are some things that you advise your clients to do in the fourth quarter? Like what kind of key things do you hunt for?
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, it's starting sooner the better, because you run into, end of the year is just chaotic anyways. Then you throw in the holidays, everyone's running around, and it's the last thing a lot of people are thinking about. But, for one, it's going through those financials to make sure that they are updated, they're reconciled, especially that balance sheet is fully reconciled, making sure that it's, as accurate as you can, and have that confidence in those numbers for sure. And a lot of times for me, and when you talk about even 1099s and even just, the W-2s, really staying on top of that and making sure that you have all the EIN numbers and all that. Because once the year ends and January rolls around, these are forms you got to send out and issue. So instead of running around at that time, do that preparation now, just to ensure that come January 1st, you're able to have a seamless transition and send these out fast. And that goes to W-2s, right? Making sure that all the payrolls are recorded, all the right info, socials, all that. So, and if you're on accrual accounting, right, which is GAAP accounting, then you got all of your accruals, right, and making sure that at the end of the year that these accruals are entered and that there's no issues on that side there. But another big one is inventory, right? And that's if your business has inventory, it's really taking that time to make sure that at the end of the year that inventory is counted properly and the numbers are correct. Ran into some issues too, where joined a firm and a company, and granted this was the first quarter, and realizing that those numbers weren't right, and it really kind of messed up the financials. Even people that rely on that in terms of banks and any sort of third party people for audits, that it gets very, very messy. And in fact, we end up moving to the first couple of days in the January, shutting down that operation to have a full physical count. And we're talking like 500,000 units. So to start the year off, boom, we have correct numbers. So it's very much needed and worth it there. But and I always like to look at the receivables and payables and making sure that if there's anything that's outstanding, this is the time to collect before the year end, or if there's anything that needs to get written off, bad debt, this is time to start, just really kind of, dotting those I's and crossing the T's. And, it's a little extra work than in your normal monthly checklist close there. But really, it's just ensuring that the numbers are correct, and you just really starting the year off correct there. But I also like to go into that year knowing how are you doing, right? And like you mentioned too, Steph, is if you're performing well, congratulations. But are you going to have a big tax bill that you should be planning for now? Make sure there's enough cash there for when that does come. So
we have some hi Mom, hi Derek. I'm surprised you're listening all the way out in Vegas at his festival that he's at. So outside of W-9s and those being like a mad dash scramble at the end of the year, what are two other big ticket items that you see that are always the little bane of the existence kind of thing? Because I have my top 3, and W-9s are definitely that, and trying to collect those instead of getting them. Either when you give me your invoice, you give me your W-9, or you don't get the check. Like, that's how I tell people that they should operate. Like, you don't get paid until I get my W-9.
Love it. I would do the same thing because it gets to be such a pain, and you end up running around the entire month of January, scrambling, and it's a mess. But yeah, like I mentioned, the W-2s, right? Because these are forms that are issued at the end of the year, and it's really just making sure that all that payroll is recorded and throughout the year. It's paid, but making sure that it's there. But reviewing the information, trying to minimize and mitigate as much risk as well as errors, so that when it does, New Year hits around, that you guys are it's done very seamlessly. But
another like a big thing for us is interest. Mm-hmm. That we don't always get the loan statements or the breakdowns for principal and interest. So that's always a big end of year adjustment. And depending on how many open loans you have, that could be a big expense. And you're freaking out that you owe all this tax liability because you're showing so much profit. But sometimes, depending on how many loans and the interest rates, you potentially are going to shave a good chunk of that down by the time you split out all that principal and interest. Like, that's another thing that we're always chasing down at the end of the year.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point there, Steph, and 100%. And what I've learned in the past, and this is, you look at like a small business, right? There's so many things happening in an owner or CEO's mind that this is the last one in terms of record keeping. But I mean, the tighter that ship, the easier that process is, and staying on top of it. So 100% is, I mean, I joked earlier, but just staying on top and starting early to just go down that list and cross them off, you would make the end of year process a lot easier.
Yeah. I mean, I know nobody really likes to sit down and buckle down in the fourth quarter because, like you mentioned, you have holiday season, you have end of year, there's just a lot of stuff going on between internal processes that have to get finished up for end of year. And nobody wants bad news around the holiday season. But waiting until that first quarter of the following year to get things organized and prepped, it's just so much harder to play that game of catch up if you do wind up owing a reasonable amount of money in taxes at the end of the year. At least you have like time.
I totally agree. And now is that time to really look at how you are projecting to finish that fourth quarter. What is that kind of cash flow forecast to see what at the end of the year you will have in terms of cash, the tax liability, now to do that. Because I can't tell you how many times where you run into, hey, we've we made, call it 3 million in profit, and hey, congratulations, way to go. But now you have a big tax bill, and it's like, where's that cash, right? Where's the money to pay for that? So it's
Right.
just having that proper kind of planning ahead of, and then the forecasts and projections are very key too.
Yeah, because usually like my clients that are stable, where they have a very slow and steady growth plan, and so they just don't have very large swings in their year over year. It's very steady, it's consistent. I usually advise them that they can meet with their CPA once a year around this time. But my clients that are aggressive with a newer business or they're in their growth phase, I always advise them to meet and do some forecasting and tax planning and prepping at least once a quarter. Is that kind of like a similar process that you guys advise as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I look at it as like, not that, like, I think once a quarter is perfectly. I think it's more common, at least for me, to advise someone to say, yeah, let's meet with that accountant and CPA and have that proper strategy. Once a quarter, I think is perfect. Just staying in the know. The CPA and the accountant there will actually know how your business is doing, and they know more about you and be able to help strategize a little bit more throughout that year. So yeah, I think that is what I would recommend as well.
Okay. And so I know we kind of touched on inventory and some of the other things that people should be reviewing, like their AR, their AP, which is accounts receivables, accounts payables. But what about internal processes? Do you do like a once a year evaluation on that, or would it be more of a monthly/quarterly thing so you could pivot faster if your process, like your new implementation, doesn't go well, like so they could prep for the next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think as your business grows, your processes obviously evolve and grow too. But I think, I mean, depending on where you're at in your business, whether if you have zero processes or you've been using a certain process and you're, 500,000 revenue, and next year you're projecting 3 million, that are they going to be the same process? So I think even I would say twice a year. If you're too busy, or once a year even. I mean, just looking at them and tweaking that process, because there's a lot that's involved, right? And putting, call it a policy and procedures, and this is how we do things, especially in the accounting department, can get very critical, and especially the more people that are involved with that department. Not only just knowing, hey, this is your role in this company, but I mean, I'm obviously a certified fraud examiner, so I'm looking out for segregation of duties and really making sure that there's the compliance side of it. And if you were to get audited, they will start looking at that, and having those policies and procedures in place are key too. But I mean, it's not like everyone's going to need to sit down every single month and look at your policies and procedures, but should look at that. Like I said, even if it's twice a year, once a quarter, that's perfect.
Yeah. And then what about putting together budgets? Do you think now is the time for people to start putting together budgets for next year? Or do you think it's kind of a little bit late and they should have done that maybe in third quarter?
Yeah, usually, I mean, we're almost into November, so I would argue that it is getting a little late. And I would even start in the end of the summer there, really trying to coordinate. I mean, depending on how big your organization is, but if it's a larger company and you start coordinating with all the different departments, but at the very least, I think that process and that ball needs to start rolling towards the end of that summer. so that, I think we've all had that experience with businesses where, you're on version 12 of the Excel sheet, it's just a constant battle back and forth, right, until it's finalized. And even then it might change. But so instead of rushing and saying, okay, here's our budget for next year, and you just threw it together with really any thought or planning, to me, it's just like a waste of time. So I think towards the end of August, you could really start that process and really button it up, like for right now.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of small business owners, at least some of the ones that I know, they have a real hard time putting the budget together, because I feel like they don't know whether to start with the numbers that they see in front of them, and then they just add 20% onto all those numbers because they want to grow by 20%, but maybe we'll take 5% off of this and that. And there's not really a solid rhyme or reason as for how they projected the plan for next year. So for me personally, I feel like it works better if I sit down and think about the goals that I want and don't necessarily put a dollar value on them, but just think about what I would like to achieve and then look at the numbers to determine what I would need to tweak to make that goal accomplishable. So what kind of tactics do you guys use?
Yeah, and there's, to me, it's an art and a science, right? Every business I feel like is a little different. I think you're right. You're exactly right, Steph. And it's coming down to those goals, right? Understanding, what do you want to accomplish this year, right? And what does that look like? And if you say I want to, 5x my revenue, and you're like, well, is that even possible? Like, and kind of work backwards, right? And you could say, well, we're going to have a whole another production facility to make that happen, and that's not even realistic. But all of that is, what are we trying to accomplish, this year? What are those goals? And I just work down the revenue, whether they're SKUs or just different, verticals in terms of revenue, and what does that mean in terms of cost, headcount. Just go through each of these bucket expenses, and that's where that time comes in, doing it sooner than later, because then you can really build that out into a robust budget, right? And another thing too I've come across is a lot of folks, they want to start changing that budget. And, even into the new year, in the first quarter, you're like, this really is not supposed to be changed or tweaked. This is it's supposed to be concrete. And this is what we'd like to do for the coming year. And then you can have your actuals, but also your forecast. And that's the one that does get changed. And you can look at all three of those together to say, here's how we were expecting from a budget standpoint. And then here's what we are actually doing. And then this is from a forecast, you can look at, hey, the next, 10 months from now in Q1, things have changed since we put that together. So now that's the three statements that you would look at for the forward looking there.
Yeah. And just so all of the listeners out there know, when we sit down and we ask you about putting together your budget and what's your goals and what you want to do, the wrong answer is make more money. That you can't just make that be your only sentence and then expect us to understand what that means. Because I don't know about you, but I work in probably 75 different industries. So like trying to make a uniform process for every single person, that doesn't work, considering that everybody's company is so different.
Yeah, every industry is different. Every company is different. Even in the same industry, I mean, it could get pretty complex. But to your point, Steph, right? It's, hey, I'm looking to make more money, and I would challenge to say, what does that look like to you? Like, how are you going to do that? Is it spend more marketing? Well, your marketing expense is going to go up, and is that, and you start diving and peeling that onion back to really get some good info. But yeah, to your point, you hear that sometimes too of, yeah, I want to make more money. That's great. I want to put more money in my pocket. Awesome. That's wonderful. How are we going to do that?
So with small businesses and mom and pops, 1-2 truck, companies, things like that, why is it that we don't do end of year projections and meetings until February? Right. Right. So, I mean, you roll, a lot of small businesses roll into the new year.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, shit.
I think some of from things that I've experienced and seen is that some of these people don't intend to grow the business beyond just being a one-person show. So ultimately, even though those projections and things still have a lot of value to them, it's just not the same to a company that is growing with the intent to get a second location or get staff or all of these sorts of things. Because if they're a sole proprietor LLC, all that is a pass-through, income onto their personal tax return, but they still need to know those quarterly liabilities. So if they're making their estimated tax payments, which their CPA could put rough numbers together based upon their prior year's tax return, and they could just make those 4 equal payments, and then they should be in a reasonably good place by the end of the following year. So I feel like some of those people, they just aren't looking to grow the business, but the people that are looking to grow the business, I feel like they're either so passionate about their specific item that they're selling or service that they're providing that they put so much value on that as it is to their time. And since they don't understand the other components of the behind the scenes, they don't put the same value on that. So they won't make the same time that they would versus a sales call, even though it could make or break your business. Because I've seen so many younger businesses get behind that 8 ball on their taxes, and some of them can't recover.
Right.
And they ultimately have to shut down because they keep growing and they keep robbing Peter to pay Paul. And it just is a vicious cycle. And then they're so stressed and they hate being a business owner. So they go back to being an employee. So those are the two kind of things and scenarios that I see with that.
I agree with you, Steph. And I always like to, even for all not only the clients, even just in the past and being a CLA and public accounting, where we dealt with many different clients and industries, but the commonality I see a lot is kind of just that. And a lot of times I feel like business owners are really good at what they do, and either they might not know a lot of the financial pieces, saying, "Oh, I looked at the financials," but like, do you really understand what they mean? In there. And then, two, it's sometimes they don't understand and they're just like, oh, the accountant and CPA can handle that. And it's usually more reactive than proactive on it. But, and that's why I love to come in and really just simplify and educate and say, this is what's happening, what this all means. So, I agree with you.
So I know by being a remote provider for small businesses where I'm, off site, they don't have to train me. They don't have to do all this. They don't have to provide benefits to me, all the stuff that comes along with being an employee. That puts us in a position where we're, much more affordable than them hiring a full-time bookkeeper or internal team like that. Is that the same for your industry and why you call yourself a fractional CFO?
Exactly. That's 100% accurate. And that's where like my passion comes in, right? Not only for heart of a teacher, as well as a passion for service, but just, going throughout the career, realizing so many different times, been at, even early stage startup pre-revenue to middle market, 150 million plus, company, being CFO on all of these, that there's just a level of not only education, but just understanding the finances, but in a simple way to make good decisions. And a lot of times it's, hey, let's spend this money now to, we're going to buy this truck and it's going to increase, our revenue. But like, do you know that? Like, is your cash going to be okay in the future? And we can put those robust models in place so you can make good decisions now. And you should see the light bulb go off. And it's to me, it's rewarding, because once they start understanding a little bit more about what's happening in their business, then the light bulb goes off. They have a better understanding. We can make good decisions. So that's really the exciting passion. But yeah, it's providing that CFO level, kind of position, but at a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, because it made me think about it when you're talking about buying the truck. Like, we've gone through and done evaluations for clients where they want to add another vehicle onto the road, and we'll go through their expenses and their COGS and all the stuff. And then we determine, like, you need that truck, if you put it on the road, it has to bill out $2,000 a day in order to make it worth it to maintain your margins.
Yeah.
And
I love it, right? Because to me, it's just that. It's trying to make those decisions with the the best ability with the amount of information that you have right now. And usually it's that, like all these scenarios, if we were to get this truck now, what does that cash look like? And going through the different scenarios to ultimately say, do we get this truck now? Can we do that? And what's the impact is it going to have? So I think the more information that you could share and provide to, say, like a business owner, then good decisions come out of it. You know, it's the trouble and the concern comes in when you just kind of not looking at information, making those decisions because, hey, I think this is going to help and make more money, you know? And it's like, to me, it's like, I would rather say, tell me that and know what, you know, some sort of outcome might happen to say, you know what, I agree with you. Let's do that because here's why.
Is there any like promotional or incentive that you give to clients or potential clients to kind of get things going like this quarter and versus calling you? Like, I mean, for me, it sucks when people call me on April 10th and they're like, can I still file on time? And so like, and they're like, I'll bring my banker's boxes by and, you know, we can get this done. Right. Like, so sometimes we've tried to incentivize people by giving them like a discount to contact us now. But that's still like, I don't feel like drives the crowd in. I feel like no matter how much money I take off the bill, I feel like they still just want to get through Christmas and then they'll talk.
That honestly, I don't think that will change because even being a public accounting, I was running the outsourced accounting practice there. So we had huge tax department, huge audit, insurance department, but the tax folks would literally try to do the same thing. And every day, it's just you had to file all these extensions because a lot of folks either say, "Here's my shoebox of receipts," and it's like you said, like right before tax due date here, and you're like, "We can't do this. We gotta file an extension here." So, but yeah, I mean, for me, it's really getting in and advising and helping the clients, ahead of time. I just am a believer the earlier you can do this, the better and smoother it's going to be.
Well, and jumping on it now, early in the fourth quarter, you can prevent a lot of fraud too, or pick up on, Jimmy's been sliding some money from the credit column over to his pocket. I think, and that's what a lot of small business owners are very trusting, right? So it's like, oh no. Jeff, I know you've got a story that you helped somebody, I think, right? That their number one, bookkeeper or whatever that they had for years and years, personal friends of the family or something, right?
Not personally, but I know other folks that has actually happened where they did steal money because they are the trusted advisor, right? CEO or owner doesn't know accounting or finance. You have either an accounting firm, bookkeeper who is doing the books. They're doing your payables, and they literally hold the keys to the kingdom that they can write a check, and they might not know or see it because they have that trust. But
yeah, a lot of my clients feel like we're too conservative because I make them do a 2-step approval process on the payables. They'll be like, if they send me like a text or something, like I don't count that. Like you have to write it on the report that I send you that you want said thing paid at this dollar value. Like I'm just really particular on it because I was like, I have access to everything, to your banking, to your reconciling, to your clients, to your employees. And they're like, well, should I not trust you? And I'm like, no, I'm telling you that you're setting yourself up to get like attacked. Like you can't, like you have to have checks and balance. There has to be things in place. I'm like, it makes me anxious. And I just like to tell you that you're making me anxious.
Right. Well, and I mean, I remember back in the day, and you all might too, is I was working for Pepper's Bedroom City, right? At water beds and bedroom furniture and stuff like that. And we had a till. And oh man, I'm short on cash. It's Thursday. We get paid Friday. I'm just gonna take $60 out of the till, put an IOU in there. And all right, and I only got 20 this week to pay back. You know what I mean? And and you count the IOU as 40.
I mean, a lot of that still may go on. I don't know, but yeah, there's not as much cash floating around today, but still the same. I look back at that and go, what in the hell?
Well, that's kind
How
of
is that
similar to like a lot of our clients. They have credit cards like an Amex with multiple sub accounts. So like you have a card, I have a card, Jeff has a card. And then when you're short, like for that month, like I've seen where employees have put like a vet bill on the company credit card because but then who's really going to yell at you? I mean, like, yes, you have to pay the money back, but who's really going to yell at you and be like, no, I wish like your animal passed and whatever. Like, like there's certain things, or like you see it like with gas cards, it's very common where it's all diesel trucks, but then all of a sudden you see regular unleaded on the transaction report, and where's that, and whose vehicle was that? So there's still things that go on that there needs to be an extra set of eyes on at all times. But I also tell every business owner, you might not understand the financial side and where to categorize and what to do with all of that, but you're still 100% responsible for everything that goes on within your company. And I look at your stuff for maybe a few hours a month. Like I'll catch what I catch, but you need to be looking at the stuff in detail. And if you can't figure out what I send you, then you need to schedule a meeting. Like I hate when people are like, oh, well, I hired you to do that, or I hired you, or I hired this person or that person. Like you sound like an employee and not a business owner. Like that's not you can't have that mentality because it's 100% on you.
You do see that a lot. And it's just it's almost like not a blame, but there's so much going on in an owner's head, right? And it's they almost like, and I get it, but to your point, right, Steph, it's this is your business, and they know it in and out. But and there's measures and some mitigation. I mean, I know some credit card companies offer that virtual card that you can turn on and off. That hey, employee one needs this card for this other event, trip, whatever, it's on, and then you can just literally shut it off. There's no more spend, or you need it, and that's just one example, but there's a lot of different things you can do.
I swear to God, my brain isn't working. I'm like, hey, for whatever Jeff wants to do, and I put the StreamYard link up there. I am literally an idiot today. I sent Jeff his own email address in an email. And now I'm trying to get people to drive into millstoneconsultinggroup.com. And I'm like, hey, if you want to know more about what Jeff can do for you and your business, visit StreamYard. I mean, what the hell? I shouldn't drink anymore. Maybe it's smart. I don't know. What in the world?
More. Maybe more.
I'm going to tell you, I don't even know what's happening right now.
So outside of all of the financial things that we've kind of touched on, how important do you feel it is to do an end of year evaluation on your team? Or how important is it to keep those people in the loop maybe more often than once a year on their performance and expectation?
Oh, I'm a big believer of, I put it this way. I hate the corporate formalities of let's have your annual review, right? Because to me, an employee, especially on your team, should know how they are doing all the time, right? And that's I'm very open and have that communication, with the team. That it's that the whole adage, right? You hire slow, fire fast, right? You want good people, do that proper vetting so that it's not like you're just pulling someone off the street and realize they're not a good fit. But it goes back to core values, trying to get good people in that door that fit the business, fit the model, and then having that open communication, with that team. So, yeah, I think it's a constant, I wouldn't say of evaluation, but more of training and educating and, trying to just develop them, right? And I like to say, well, what do you want? And how can I help you and this business help you, grow? Whether it's, I brought folks even just to a business dinner, these young folks out of school, just so they can understand and see what it's like and how to act. And, they loved it. But, just like that, getting them more involved, having them, I love to sit down and any sort of, communication or a problem that we're having and, ultimately if it's my decision, but I want their input, and they might have some really good ideas, but to me it's really just having a constant flow back and forth communication and developing trust. To me, those are good, solid kind of foundations for a good team.
Yeah, because usually we try and do like a weekly mini meeting,
Mhm.
and during the mini meeting, everybody gets their variance and efficiency reports. So the efficiency reports are your billable hours versus your non-billable hours, and then the variance report is what I bid those, because we do flat rate billing. So it's how much time they spent on that contract versus what I sold it at, to determine either if I was incorrect in my bidding or if we need to do some internal training or processing on that specific client. So every week they kind of see and know where they're at on those reports. And then we also this year created a sheet, like a pay rate sheet, where it has like pay ranges. And in order to achieve these pay range brackets, you need to be able to do said skills. So this way, then they know their path and plan for the next steps if they choose to stay within the bookkeeping and accounting industry.
Yeah, and that's a very similar model, especially at a big firm with CLA 8,000. I mean, we called that utilization and realization, but same metrics, right? Are you being utilized here in the firm, or you might have a lot of write-offs here, so your realization just drops. The bill should be up here, but we're actually charging this because there's a lot of inefficiencies or training, whatever that may be. But so yeah, a lot of those metrics are there as well.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, kind of unrelated topic, but what is your thought on the zero limitation of PTO time? But then it's publicly shared within the company.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I've heard a lot of feedback saying that when you implement something like that, and this is like unlimited, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
That a lot of people don't abuse that, right? And most don't. And I haven't been at either a company or a situation where that is actually in place, but I was starting to see a little bit more of that. And I believe, I guess, in it. I mean, I think everyone works really hard. I mean, you might have a few that do abuse it, like anything out there, but I think for the most part, some of the either the videos and readings that I've done on it, that it seems to be effective, right? I feel like when you put people in constraints, like they're always like, hey, you can't do that. And they're like, well, I do want to do that just because I can't. And now it's like, oh, now I can take as much as I want, but I got all this work to do. I don't want to abuse it. And people don't. So it's almost like reverse psychology, maybe.
Yeah. What's your take on it?
Yeah. Well, so I first heard about it through my sister-in-law, because the company she was recently at, they have it. And I was real hesitant, but I'm always real hesitant to change.
No.
So, yeah. So, but like the thing is, though, is I feel like I have a good solid team. So I felt like if I did implement something like that, I don't feel like I'm going to have those problems where I'm angry and feeling like I'm taking on more work because they're not here. So I feel like I don't know, it could go both ways, but the only reason why I kind of asked that is because when Jeff was talking about like training and education, everybody knows in 3 weeks we're going to the QuickBooks Connect conference. So I take my whole staff with me and we all go for learning and everything. And there's a class called the 25-hour work week mindset. And they talk about how people in our industry, I'm sure it probably applies to yours because it's all financial people, and how we work on weekends, we work, during the week, we do this, we do that, and how they feel we could be as efficient with the whole scattering our time amongst the 7 days, and we could achieve it all within a 25-hour work week.
Yeah.
So I want to see how that plays out.
At FMBO, the branch managers have unlimited. They can take all year if they want it, right? It's that zero, whatever you call it. And basically, what it prevents is every manager being on vacation in December. Because everybody, to Jeff's point, you're busy, you're working, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, use it or lose it. And I'm not going to lose my 4 weeks. I still have 2 weeks. I'm going to get them in December. So there's no, what they found is that there was really no leadership
in the building,
in the building throughout the company in the month of December, because they were all trying to jack in these 4 weeks. Now what they find out is on average and they've been doing this for several years, but they found that on average the branch managers only take about 3 weeks of vacation. To Jeff's point is, and yours, like, hey, I'm working all the time, but I got to work. I can't be away.
Yeah, I mean, we do. So I don't do if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
I just pay it out on December on their last paycheck of the year. If they're guaranteed whatever amount of weeks of PTO time, if they didn't use it all by December 31st, then I pay it out.
Yeah.
And then they start back at 0 January 1.
Yep.
Just because I don't want to deal with people that hoard stuff and then all of a sudden they have, 90 days and you're like, what?
Yeah, I'm quitting, and oh, by the way, you owe me 4 months of vacation.
Right. Like I don't want to deal with any of that. So we just pay it out. But yeah, I was just curious because they have this class and then they also have a work-life balance class, Kent. So.
Oh, I don't think there's such a thing.
So I'm not going to that class because obviously if anybody listens to they know how you and I feel about it from the grounds from a few weeks ago, but yeah. So what is like an ideal client? Like what is your unicorn client for that comes in at this time of the year?
I mean, for me, I wouldn't even say like this time of year, but it's businesses that are eager to grow. They're coachable, that they're looking for, I like to say like, hey, you're growing, you might need to add more people, additional facilities, and you need that help, right? Or you hit that glass ceiling where, hey, there's no problem with the sales and the marketing side of it. Revenue's increasing, but there's never enough cash in the bank, or, maybe there's issues with margins that you just need the extra, peeling that onion back to really fine tune those margins and KPIs there. So for me, I was telling, Kent before, it was, $1 million to 20 million-ish company is like sweet spot, right? These are companies that they feel like they make money, but they never have enough money almost, right? And across many different industries. I love QuickBooks Online. That's such an easy system to use. Sage Intact is another system. Xero across many different industries, healthcare, tech, most med fintech, also the construction, general contractors, subcontractors, in the healthcare space. So these are clients just looking to invest in their company, and they're growing, and they want that help. But I was kind of touching on too before, Steph, is I look at that role as such an important role. And it's changed throughout the years, maybe 15, 20 years, where it was that, sitting in the back office, crunching numbers, saying no to everything. We got to cut costs. But now it's evolved so much that it is that strategic partner where it's such a critical role. You wear many hats. So the companies in that range, even earlier at startup, but you don't have it. Usually it's just, oh yeah, we'll get to that point and have a CFO, but it is critical in their growth. So that's why I'm loving being able to offer that level of service, but they don't have to hire a full-time CFO yet and give them that guidance. So those are some of the key points from a client's perspective.
So to kind of play off of Kent's question earlier, what is something you find that is like the biggest roadblock, like a feedback that you get from small business owners as to why they can't prioritize prioritize looking at the numbers? What are the top 3 excuses you get?
Well, I mean, to me, it's education, right? I mean, I was talking about a $50 million company where really did not understand those financials. I mean, on the high level, you're like, oh, here's my P&L. And P&L is like, if you want to call it one, like the sexy of the financial statements. Everyone loves looking at the P&L, right? It's here's how you did. But at the end of the day, it was, hey, you made X and a few $1 million. Well, and the CEO is like, well, where is that money? It's not my bank account. And that's when you're like, okay, we really need to take a step back, understand like, hey, we're going to do a whiteboard, accounting finance 101, just so they can understand the metrics that are going inside those statements and what they actually mean. So to me, it's education, number one, right? And a lot of times you run into such situations where you do talk to, say, like a CPA, and there's nothing wrong with a CPA or account because you need that. But in that case, they'll say, hey, great job. You had a wonderful year, but here's your tax bill. And it's like, well, where's the money for that? Because it's not my bank account yet, So trying to, and it almost makes them, I don't say feel dumb, but they might not understand that, and so me, it's a lot of education. And then, and a lot of times they're really good at what they do as a CEO, whatever that product, their service that they're offering, that they kind of know high level, but they don't want to get into that weeds there, and say, this is where the accountant has that, and they take care of that, and they just don't want to know. But for me, it's that. And then I think lastly, it's just probably some sort of bad experience in the past that they either didn't like the accounting world and finance world, or someone talked to them that they just didn't understand. It made them feel like dumb, and they just don't want to know. Honestly, those are some of the feedback. But
yeah, I get that a lot too. Those same kind of responses to things from like newer clients that have come from other prior firms. What is something that you think that we could do to help these small business owners not feel afraid or anxious or whatever to come and talk to us to get that vital information to inspect the health of their company? Like, do you think going one avenue of putting little 2-minute tips and tricks like videos on our websites where they could privately see that? Or do you think in a room full of people and doing like a speaking engagement, or do you think people aren't going to show up because they're afraid to ask questions in front of other business owners that they feel like they're the only one? Like they're the only one not understanding their profit and loss. They're the only one that doesn't understand the balance sheet. Like I feel like a lot of people feel like they're the only one, but they're not. Like everybody, like unless you're specifically have a financial background, like everybody else is like the same. Like you're in the same thing with everybody else.
Yeah, and it's such a it's not even a problem. I mean, it's a common thing that you run across is just that, where I think a lot of people feel, and quite frankly, hey, what's some of the biggest challenges, right? A question you could ask, and a lot of times it's the sales and the marketing, and we don't have enough in the pipeline, and then they go home and they start hitting their fists against the pillow, and be like, cash is always worried. Like it's almost like they're like embarrassed to talk about cash, and there's never enough. And so I think from an I think it's both, honestly. I think anything we can do to help, whether it is those 2-minute videos, even putting together some 1-pagers of tips and trades. Here's top 5 ways to keep more cash in your business, and having those speaking engagements. I like to call them workshops and seminars and summits that let's talk about it, right? I mean, I could talk 2 hours on certain, keeping cash in your business, and here's some modeling you can do, and I'll give you templates if you want to help you or do it for you. There's a lot of, I think, educational tools that are out there right now, but also I think between us and really understanding, been around a lot of business owners now, that it's a very common problem. And a lot of times, I think the number one problem is I don't know the visibility in the cash. Cash is always on everyone's mind, which is so key in a business.
Yeah. I always get the question of the cash, but I always notice though that every client that has like profits, they're like, I don't see that in my bank account.
Yeah.
But then whenever they show a loss, they're never like, I don't see that in my bank account. Like I feel like it's like the easiest way for them to see that how that flow and all of that works. Like if you showed a loss of $50,000, I mean, Kent can speak. I don't think most banks would allow you to go that negative in your checking account. It's but yeah, I agree that education is a big thing, and I feel like a lot of business owners, if they can get an opportunity to get out of the trenches, that I feel like they could really benefit from learning not just about financial side of their business, but also like marketing side of their business. Like that's not like my strong suit. I have somebody that handles that. Like
I think the tough thing is that small business owners, and this is why CFOs and bookkeepers are needed immediately if you're starting a business, is the cash is a tool to help you become successful. Yet they measure their success by the amount of money they have in their bank account, right? So Pete, my former business partner, God rest his soul, right? It all goes back into the business. It all goes back into the business. It all goes back into the business. Well, then what? Right? At some point, you got to define success. And you, Jeff, as a CFO, and you, Steph, as a bookkeeper, are like, no. The money is a tool to help you get to the next level, or to help you get that next shop, or to help you get that next employee, or whatever. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand that. They feel that the cash is the end goal.
Yeah. I always tell all the business owners, like when they're trying to transition from a one person operation to a multi-person operation, that you need to pay yourself as the business owner as if you were paying an employee. So it might be a lesser salary than what you would normally take, but you could always take that difference in distribution or draw,
Right.
but pay yourself. Like if you're going to hire somebody to do the same job that you're doing, like as for the actual billable work, not all of the marketing stuff and the networking and all of the additional things that we do as business owners. But if you're going to pay that person $25 an hour, start off by paying yourself $25 an hour. And you'll see if you have enough cash left over to not only sustain that for yourself, but also to bring in somebody else at $25 an hour. Like, because you have to cover $50 an hour then, because you have two mouths.
Yeah, I agree with you, Steph. And I was telling these guys another time is, we follow the profit first, system there, and setting up these automated systems where it just, it's you paying yourself first. It's like, I like to think of it's like that 401k, it's designed so that you do pay yourself first, and you're putting all this effort in, and you can grow and scale the business that way. Just a different way of looking at it, but it's set up to be, it's automated. And we have profit meetings, and it's like, how often do you have profit meetings? And usually you just get the little crumbs that are left over, and you start resenting that business because you're putting so much time and there's nothing to show for it. So we change that in the mentality.
So do you, when you're looking at people's financials and you're looking to put together some projections and stuff, because I know personally, when clients ask me to do forecasting and cash flow projections and all of that kind of stuff, I will not do any forecasting for them at all if they use their business account like it's their personal checking account. If I see a large volume of transactions, like for their grocery store or like getting, I don't know, going to Six Flags or doing whatever they're doing, because in my opinion, there's no way for me to really, like, I can put it all in the proper buckets, but to actually figure out a plan for the business as a standalone entity, it makes it almost impossible. But I could be missing a nugget there because it's not my forte. But so I don't know if that's something that you kind of do as well or feel strong about.
Yeah, it gets challenging, right? And even in the past, when you're jumping into an engagement, where I like to say, it's like you bring your car that's making a noise to a dealership, and you're like, hey, can you fix this? It's like, I don't know. I got to get under the hood to take a look. I got to go through your books to see. But to your point, that scares me and freaks me out. There's a reason why we have, like a limited liability in companies, right? There's that corporate veil. And once that's broken, if you start using, company funds as like your own personal checkbooks, like that corporate veil is gone. And now you could be liable for a lot of any issues that might arise. So right off the bat is stop that, and two, it could get very messy, but you really, and any sort of business going on a sale, you want to normalize that. So trying to figure out what is actual business expenses and what is personal expenses can get very messy. But one, it's, stop that right now. And then, trying to figure out is the next phase is what are business expenses and what are personal, to break that out. Yeah, it could get pretty messy.
Yeah, I just don't like doing it. I just tell them to transfer the $1,000 into your personal account and do whatever you're going to do with it. But don't break it up into like 65 different little transactions that are going to be not explainable in an audit. Like, especially if you buy your office supplies at Costco, but you also grocery shop for your home at Costco. It's going to give the auditor that reason then to take all Costco transactions and be like, they're personal.
Yeah,
you know, like when you do those mix and mingle, especially at facilities that have that capability, like Walmart or Costco or whatever, like things like that, where you could buy multiple different items.
Yeah, you just, especially in an audit, or the worst is a surprise audit or anything like that, where you want to just, like I mentioned earlier, just you want to keep as clean as records as possible. It just makes it go so much smoother, easier, and the company will have a better understanding of what is going on, right, in the business. So
yeah. Kent, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So in the mortgage industry, and us small business owners come to get a mortgage, how many times do you feel like in your career that might be a lot, but how many times do you feel like a small business owner has missed the boat on a purchase or a specific interest rate because their financials are not up to date, and now it's put them in a position to now either have to pay a higher rate or lose the property that they loved?
93.765%. Yeah, no, seriously, the just about everyone, right? Because they want to take advantage of the tax loopholes. That's why I become a business owner, whatever the case may be. And my accountant said, no, don't show because you'll have to pay taxes. Well, they don't want to pay taxes. Then they go to buy a house, a car, something like that. And now I've got to go a non-conventional way. So when I go a non-conventional way, you're looking at a point or two higher, right? On interest. So when interest rates right now are 7.5%, 8%, you're going to be looking at about 9.5%, 10% on a mortgage, right? And that's because you didn't want to show any income.
Right. Or if they come in and their financials aren't ready, like if you're like, I need a profit and loss to present to underwriting to even see if we can go to the next phase. And then they have to find an accounting firm or bookkeeper or a cousin, somebody to put the numbers together.
In the 90s. Yeah. In the 90%. Yeah, absolutely.
And then you guys, I don't know if specifically where you're at now, but I know some banks require a third party signature on those financials in order to even go to the next phase of the loan. Like we've had to do and prep them.
Yeah, we need, if you're going to give me a financial statement, I need it from your accountant or certified bookkeeper or whatever the case may be. You can't just, put it on a napkin and give it to us. Be like, here we go.
It's not like the good old days.
Not like the good old days, no. And or I need your last 2 years of personal and business tax returns, right? So I mean, that's a big thing. And 90 to high 90 to mid 90s, easy of all small business owners aren't prepared for a purchase. Yeah.
It's just statistically scary.
It is statistically scary. We got about a minute.
Oh, yeah. So now, Jeff, at this time of the show, we do What Did You Learn? So you would share a little nugget of something that you learned, whether it was something funny in the green room or something that you learned during the show.
There you go.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. I would say, I think Ken loves day drinking there. All that stuff, so
perfect.
That's awesome. Maybe I'll join you one of these days there. But yeah, no, to me, it's, I feel like there's a lot of commonality in problems throughout there. And it's not even, nothing to be embarrassed about if you're a business owner going through this. It's probably more common than you think. And it's okay. And there's things you can get, some help with or guidance to get you in the right track there.
Nice. Here's what I learned is congratulations to Steph's books. Looks like they're getting unlimited vacation. Fantastic.
They could hear you next door, Ken.
Well, and that you guys are going out to, and this is what I really like, is y'all are spending some time to enhance your business knowledge, heading out to the QuickBooks here in a couple weeks. So that's cool.
Yeah, we're gonna divide and conquer. We have one person's doing all like the construction and job costing kind of classes, and then another person's doing all the forecasting and KPIs, and then I'm doing the like how to empower your team and how to grow your business and buy firms kind of stuff. So
yeah, the other thing that I learned is obviously this particular week every year Joe disappears.
Yeah, it is consistent. But I think I don't know if this is I guess the thing that makes me happy is every single person that we've had on the show that is also in a professional service space all has the same message about education and all has the same message reiterating and telling all the business owners that you're not the only one. Like of all of our clients, they've all said the same thing that you're thinking in your head.
That's right.
And so hopefully that makes people feel better and empower them to come and chat.
Sure. Hey, listen, that's going to do it for us. We got to get out of here right now. But thanks for tuning in. Come back tomorrow. The rejects are running at about 8:30 p.m. And then Sunday morning, we've got Living Outside the Box with Lisa Eflin. So, Jeff, again, over at Millstone Consulting Group. If you're looking for a CFO and some guidance for your business, check them out at millstoneconsultinggroup.com, fractional CFO, and becoming a good friend of the shows here. Appreciate you, Jeff. I know you're busy and you smoked in here. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you.
Thanks.